Citybiz List viewers. I am excited for our conversation today as we gear up for NAMI Metropolitan Baltimore's second annual Louder event. I'm excited to chat with Monica Mitchell, who is the Senior Vice President of the Wells Fargo Foundation and a Louder honoree. I had the great pleasure of crossing paths with Monica last year, and over coffee, I learned more about her personal experiences with mental health and her passion for serving our community. I quickly joined her crowd of admirers. She's a powerful community advocate, both professionally and personally. So, Monica, thank you so much for joining me today.
Carrie, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, Monica, let's start with a little bit of history. You've worked in banking and community development for over 20 years, and giving back and supporting organizations like NAMI Metro Baltimore is a really big part of what you do. Can you take us back a little bit? Tell us about where your passion for this kind of work came from. What led you to become the Senior Vice President of the Wells Fargo Foundation?
Yeah, so I just have to say, really just giving back and a life of service is something that my family, my mother, my grandparents really instilled in me at a young age. We were always, they were always looking for ways to support others in our community, whether it was, making meals for folks who were sick or who couldn't get to the grocery store, taking in folks within our community into our home during challenging times. And so honestly, it was something that they just poured into me as an expectation. And then, throughout my life, I've just looked for ways to try to be of service to others, not because there's anything necessarily special about it, but because I was raised that that's the right thing to do. And it's I can't remember who said it, but it's sort of the rent you pay for living on this earth. So it's just part of the DNA. And then, for me, because it's part of the DNA, it was always really important to me to find jobs where I could incorporate service into the work that I did. So when I first started with what was then Wachovia, and then became Wells Fargo, I really looked for ways to incorporate helping others into the work that I did. I started working in the branch, opening up bank accounts. But what I found was that many people came into the bank and they didn't know how to manage their finances. They were coming in with overdraft fees, and it was creating really difficult circumstances for their finances. And I learned that by educating people, by being able to provide information on how to manage their finances, it could reduce a lot of stress in their lives, and also help them navigate unexpected, unforeseen occurrences and things within their families that could help reduce stress. So that's where I started in the financial services industry and bringing that love of service to my work. And it just branched out into a career in itself from there. I started asking within the bank who was leading our volunteerism efforts. I found that it was nobody at the time, and so I volunteered to take that work on. And it's sort of a domino effect led to the career I have today.
I love that. And I'm sure that knowing you, that you're doing the same to instill that into your kids as well, as you work to raise good community stewards today too. So, Monica, what initially inspired you to get involved with NAMI Metro Baltimore's Louder event to elevate the mental health conversation in Baltimore?
So, I'm a caregiver of individuals who navigate mental health challenges. And I know that this journey would have been much different without having the resources at hand to just ask questions, to talk to folks who were navigating similar things, and to make sure that that my children and and other members within my family had those resources, but also had a supportive and understanding ear. It was just really important to me to be able to make sure that I had the tools at my disposal and to do all I could to provide the tools to the people that I care about.
Wonderful. And since we're talking about youth, in your prior role, you led the Wells Fargo Youth and Young Adult portfolio to support small businesses, financial health, housing affordability. And you also have a son who goes to Morgan State University, a school that we're proud to have participate in our I Will Listen campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about the importance of making sure that mental health support is available for our youth today?
Well, I mean, youth are navigating challenges so much bigger than I think anything that we could have, ever imagined a generation ago. And a lot of times they're navigating them privately just because of all the things with social media. And, you could easily have every kid has their own laptop or computer and TV and phone. And so we're not all necessarily gathered around in the same places that we used to be. Families are busy, and so maybe it's just at the dinner table or on the weekend that you're really just getting together. And even when that happens, it can oftentimes be rushed, and you're just trying to do all the parenting and family things. And so you may not always have line of sight into really how they're feeling, how they're doing, some of the challenges they may be navigating with their friends or within their social communities, either in person or online. And so I think it's just so important that students and youth have the resources to be able to recognize, one, when they may be facing some mental health challenges, and that doesn't make them weird or abnormal. It's entirely normal to navigate those things, but to also realize that they have people who love and care about them within their networks, that they can reach out to, that they can talk to, that if they feel whatever they're feeling or thinking just doesn't feel right, that there's help available and that somebody cares about them and about their well-being. And so I think that's so important. I know it's been important for my own two boys, and certainly for other families as well. And actually, both of my sons are at Morgan State University. And, one of the things that was important to me when they went off to college, and both of my children are sort of like pandemic generation graduates. One graduated in 2020 and one graduated in 2021. And so, so much of their lives turned virtual right overnight. And again, that just added another layer on top of, how they may be emotionally dealing with things, sometimes may not have the vocabulary to share. And so I also wanted to make sure that I took advantage of the resources that became available because of the pandemic, like virtual counseling, other things that made access to mental health tools and resources much more available for them. So that was one of the things I was really intentional about.
I love that. Absolutely. And I think it is so important for all of us to be so intentional about our mental health. And you brought up the pandemic and, how much it has changed our lives and for our youth, but for all of us really. Before the pandemic, our mental health was much less often talked about. And now on social media, we see celebrities and influencers speaking up about their experiences with mental health. Why do you think that that's important to be open and share stories? What does that do for our community?
I think it's really easy to, whether you're somebody who's navigating your own mental health or a caregiver, to become isolated and sort of you get so focused in what's going on and you think you may be the only person or family that's navigating that. And so I think that it's really healthy that a lot more folks are talking about mental health, whether it's on social media or in just conversations with friends and family, coworkers, because one, you're not by yourself. And that in and of itself is important to know, right? Like it just to know that you're not alone, to know that there's a community of folks who are navigating similar things that you can learn from, that you can share your experiences with, that you're just not creating the wheel by yourself is super important. And then what I've learned is when I've shared my story and when other folks have shared their story with me, now I have a new partner and relationship, somebody to just, hey, I see you're having a bad day. Like it makes me even more aware of the care that I give the people around me once I know what they're navigating. That doesn't mean I need to know everything that's going on in somebody's life, but it does mean if there are landmines that I want to be able to avoid or there's extra care that I want to give somebody, or an extra check-in or a text message or a word of encouragement or something like that, sharing those stories definitely helps to make you alert to those things.
Absolutely. Normalizing the conversation is so important to removing barriers in our daily conversation around mental health. So it's incredible.
And the other thing I'll say, Carrie, is that, if somebody were navigating a physical illness, there's usually not much stigma around that, right? So, if I have diabetes and I need to, share with my coworkers that I'm really vigilant about what I eat. So if we have a team potluck, can you make sure you bring certain things? That would not be a conversation that's stigmatized as much. And so, my hope is that in sharing these conversations, we can bring mental health to the same level as physical health, and being willing and able to have those conversations.
Absolutely. The brain is not separate from the body, right? We should treat it all the same. And speaking about other impacts that happen in the community that also can impact mental health, much of your work has been focused on community impact programs and providing economic and educational opportunities that help uplift historically underserved populations. From your unique lens, how does a lack of access to such opportunities impact mental health? And what are some of the ways that you would suggest Baltimore build more mentally healthy communities?
Yeah, so much of my life is focused on finance. And when you think about the number one reason marriages break up, it's because of finances. The number one reason kids drop out of college is because of finances. When you look at the life expectancy of folks who navigate poverty versus those who don't, it's much shorter because of the stress, the physical and mental stress that it places on them. There are plenty of, scientific studies that document that the physical and mental stress that comes from the effects of poverty or not having enough resources is real and is a detriment to your health, to your livelihood, and to your longevity. And so there's a direct correlation in the work that I do, and realizing that mental health factors into those, to those pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about, that the workplace is such an important place to talk about mental health because you're tying all of that economic, stability together with the people, the individuals that you likely spend the most amount of time with. And yet 80% of employees with a mental health condition report that shame and stigma keep them from seeking treatment or support. So how can people be more supportive of their employees, their friends, their family members' mental health?
Yeah, so I think I think one thing is really important for companies to make sure that they're offering employee assistant programs. Some places call them EAPs, or some other type of acronym, but essentially it's a third party resource that is available to employees to navigate their mental health. I certainly know Wells Fargo offers it. I've dialed in and used the service as I was trying to navigate, needs for my own children as they navigated their mental health concerns. And that was really important because it was a resource that was provided by my employer. I didn't have to pay extra for it. It was a confidential resource, so I didn't have to worry that my employer would know all this information that I may not want them to know. But I was able to have ready access to it. So that's really important. I would also say, and this may sound strange, but pay equity fits into it. As I mentioned, finances and mental health have a very strong correlation. So making sure that you are equitably paying your employees so that you're not inadvertently layering on to their challenges is really important, and so that they have the resources to be able to access the financial resources to access mental health supports as well. And then partnerships with organizations like NAMI. So you may have a small business and can't afford, these third party EAPs and things like that. But to make sure that your employees know that there are third party nonprofits and organizations that focus on providing support is tremendously helpful as well.
So Monica, you mentioned utilizing some resources in the workplace, of course, like EAPs. What are some of the other resources that have helped you or helped the people in your life, perhaps your sons or other family members who needed mental health support?
Yeah, certainly. So, as I mentioned, NAMI has been an incredible resource for me, for my children, and certainly I think as employers and individuals think about how they can provide resources or access resources, I think it's really important that you think about organizations like NAMI and the resources that you can access at no cost. I had the opportunity through some of my professional experiences to visit a number of nonprofits, NAMI being one of them, and had an opportunity to really do a deep dive into a lot of the programs that NAMI provides. And as someone who doesn't personally navigate, severe mental health challenges, but am a caregiver to those who do, sometimes it's hard to see the world through their eyes. And so there was a program that I went through with NAMI called Virtual Voices, where you actually get a chance to put a headset on and hear what may be going through the mind of somebody who is navigating a mental health challenge. And so, to be able to, and you had to navigate regular daily tasks while you're hearing these voices. And you realize how distracting and disturbing and, sort of the negative self-talk and all of those things that you may hear make it really difficult to go about any type of normal activities. And when you go through that experience, you're like, wow, my kid is like a superhero rock star, that they are even functioning in this world, having to navigate all this. And so it just gives you like a moment to walk in somebody else's shoes and understand for a moment what somebody else is going through. And when you do, there's a level of compassion and love and respect and gratitude and just like amazement at this person and what they have to go through and what they're able to overcome. And I think that's a really important perspective for caregivers to understand. I also know that NAMI, as I mentioned, my two sons attend Morgan State University. NAMI is really focused on providing anti-stigma programs and campaigns to open the conversation for young people, both in middle school and high school, as well as in college, to help them recognize that, one, there's help available, and two, when you have that conversation, it allows the members of your support system to be aware, and to also be able to seek out and provide those additional resources to make sure that, that you're growing into a happy and healthy adult. And so I've been, tremendously grateful for those resources that NAMI provides, and, just cannot encourage, my neighbors, my family, my friends to more to get knowledgeable about those resources as well.
Well, thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate the love that you show for all of our work. We're so grateful. And so I guess that my final question for you, Monica, is as the Senior Vice President of the Wells Fargo Foundation, what message around mental health do you hope to impart to your employees and community?
I hope that the message is that, mental health, just like our physical health, just like our oral health, our visual health, it should be something that we take care of. And, whether it's our body, our teeth, our eyes, our mind, that it's so critical to, to stay on top of that mental health, to stay on top of talking to folks, whether in good times or challenging times. I think there's also this, misconception that you only need to seek out resources when you're going through a tough time. I think it's just as important when you're going through great times as well. And that, I hope that I'm encouraging my coworkers and, folks that may see me working out in the community that, that your financial health and your mental health are intricately correlated, and that the best way to achieve wealth is by focusing on your holistic health.
I love that. Well, I think that you are a shining example of how we can all elevate our voices and be more supportive of each other in our communities. So thank you so much, Monica, for sharing your words of wisdom with us today. And thank you to the Citybiz List viewers for checking out our interview. And I hope that you'll join us for Louder on April 18th as we recognize Monica's contributions to the community. And you can find out more about our work at namibaltimore.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.